Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going to be looking at how to talk about money in English, which I think a lot of people think is really easy, but
It'll be tricky.
yeah, it can be a lot trickier than it seems at first. So the material that we're going to be looking at today comes from a podcast episode called Money Talks, English Conversations on Finance, from a series called The English Edge.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things they said is that mastering money idioms can make you sound like a native speaker.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So let's dive in and see what they have to say about that.
Okay, great.
All right, so they start out talking about idioms, and I was really surprised by how many money idioms there are.
Yeah, they're all.
Like, we all know the classic, money doesn't grow on trees.
Right.
But this episode actually talked about how that idiom reflects a mindset of scarcity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Like, it subtly reinforces the idea that money is a limited resource.
Yeah.
And that we need to be careful about how we use it.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really makes you think about how language shapes our perceptions of money.
Absolutely.
But it's not always about scarcity.
No.
They also highlighted idioms that express abundance.
Okay.
Like, make it rain.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard that one?
I have heard that one.
Yeah.
It's pretty common.
Yeah, it's much more recent though, right?
Yeah. I think it was popularized through hip-hop culture. Evokes a sense of lavish spending and celebration.
Yeah.
A stark contrast to money doesn't grow on trees.
Total opposite.
Right.
Totally different.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how, you know, these different idioms can reflect these evolving attitudes towards wealth and spending.
It is.
So break the bank. I think that one is pretty universal these days.
I think so, too.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that feeling of wanting something.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit out of reach financially. And that idiom perfectly captures that tension
Definitely.
between desire and affordability.
Yeah.
And you can use it in so many different ways. Like from a serious, I can't afford a new car right now, it would break the bank. To a more lighthearted, like, that latte was delicious, but it almost broke the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's adaptable to different levels of, like, financial strain.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it's so widely used.
And it kind of adds a little bit of drama.
Yeah.
Even if you're just talking about, like, a pricey cup of coffee.
Exactly.
So speaking of drama, the episode also went into some business-specific idioms.
Right.
Like in the red and in the black.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, and I feel like those are really essential for understanding, like, financial reports or business news.
Right.
Like, in the red instantly gives you this picture of financial difficulty, while in the black means you're doing okay.
Yeah, you're stable and successful.
It's like a quick visual cue to assess how a company is doing.
Totally.
But sometimes these idioms can pop up in, like, everyday conversations, too.
Oh, for sure.
Like, imagine a friend saying, my new business venture is finally in the black.
Right.
You instantly know that things are going well for them.
Yep. All that hard work paid off.
Yeah, it's like a secret code for financial success.
I like that.
So what other kind of gems did they unearth in this episode?
Well, they moved on to vocabulary next.
Okay.
But they didn't just, like, list out definitions and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
They actually talked about how you use these words in real-life situations, which I thought was pretty insightful.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I know what income and expenses mean, but how often do we actually use those words in casual conversation?
Right, exactly.
You know, when you're talking to your friends about money, you don't usually say, oh, my expenses exceed my income.
Right. You're more likely to say, I'm broke.
Yeah, or I'm strapped for cash, or something like that. It's much more informal, the language we use.
Yeah. It's like there's this whole separate vocabulary for everyday money talk.
Yeah.
But then when you're in, like, a more formal setting, like if you're at work or discussing a business proposal, then those technical terms become super important.
Totally.
Like, you have to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you need to be clear and professional.
Yeah, it's all about striking the right balance between, like, clarity and professionalism. But I think even in casual settings, sometimes that specific vocabulary can be helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like setting boundaries with friends and family.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, they talked about that in the episode.
Well, really?
Yeah, like if you have a friend who's constantly borrowing money, You might need to have a conversation with them about like repayment terms or interest rates.
Wow.
Even if it feels a little awkward.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's important.
To protect yourself financially while also like maintaining those relationships.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
It is.
So what else did they talk about in this episode?
Well, they also analyzed like a news article.
Oh, wow.
About the rising cost of living.
Okay, interesting.
And it was fascinating to see how they broke down these complex economic concepts like inflation and supply chain disruptions into language that anyone could understand.
That's so important.
It is, because we're bombarded with financial news all the time.
Constantly.
But it can be so hard to understand sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
They also highlighted the importance of being aware of the emotional undertones in financial language.
Yeah, like how some words can trigger like anxiety or shame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the word debt carries a lot of negative baggage for people.
For sure.
So they suggested using more neutral language, like financial obligation, to keep the conversation like less emotionally charged.
It's just a subtle shift. But I think it can make a really big difference.
Totally.
In how someone feels about their situation.
For sure. And it kind of ties back to what we were saying before about different cultural perspectives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They emphasized that certain words or phrases might carry different meanings. Depending on the cultural context.
Like how some cultures are more comfortable talking about money than others.
Yeah, some are very private about it.
Yeah. It's like you're navigating this whole new set of rules.
Yeah, you really are.
So did they offer any tips on how to navigate these tricky conversations?
They did. Yeah, they gave like a really practical scenario. Where like, imagine a friend comes to you and confides in you that they're in debt.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is.
How do you even approach that?
Well, the first thing they said was active listening is key.
So just letting them share?
Yeah, just let them talk. And share how they're feeling.
Without judgment?
Yes, without judgment. And without interruption.
So not jumping in with solutions or?
No, not yet. Just listen.
Empathy first.
Exactly. And then maybe acknowledge their feelings.
So what would you say?
You could say something like, that sounds incredibly stressful. I can't imagine what you're going through. Something like that.
Just validate their experience.
Yes. Before offering advice.
Right, because sometimes advice, even if it's well-intentioned, can feel dismissive.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you're not really listening.
Exactly. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there for them.
Just listen.
Yeah, just listen.
Okay.
Let them vent. Let them get it all out.
Be a sounding board. Okay, so then how do you move from just listening to actually like offering helpful suggestions?
Well, they suggest framing advice as open-ended questions.
Oh, interesting.
Rather than directives.
So instead of saying you need to create a budget.
Right. Say something like, have you thought about exploring budgeting apps? Some of them are really user-friendly.
So it's less like you're telling them what to do. It's more like you're working together.
Yeah, a collaboration. To find a solution.
I like that.
And you don't have to be a financial expert to offer support.
Yeah.
Sometimes just brainstorming together can make a huge difference.
So like ask them, what are some areas where you could cut back?
Exactly. And encourage them to think about it themselves.
I like that.
And if the situation is really overwhelming, then you can suggest professional help. Like, have you considered talking to a financial advisor? They could help you create a plan.
So it takes the pressure off of you.
Exactly.
To have all the answers.
And empowers them.
Yeah.
To seek out expert guidance.
I love that advice.
The good advice.
This has been such a helpful episode. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for navigating money conversations. It's more than just numbers.
It is,
It's about understanding cultural nuances, the emotional weight of words.
Absolutely.
And just using language thoughtfully. Yeah, and carefully to build stronger relationships.
I agree.
Well, this has been another great deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What conversation are you going to have differently now that you have these tools? We'd love to hear from you in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.